Hey everybody, this is Jim, the tabletop engineer, and today I have something really fun to share with you. I have got Lenny Goddard. Did I get the name right?
You did.
Lenny Goddard from 1985 Games with me today, and we're going to talk about a few things. First thing I want to do is just say, Lenny, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. I've been supporting your little book ever since it came out. So ever since I found it, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And I read it every month, and I've been advertising it every month, and I really love what they're trying to do. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. My goal with the source book was, it's so funny. I get occasionally businesses think I'm up to something. It's like, no, it's a catalog for gamers, and they can find what they want. It's no trick. Just click on the ad and it takes you to their, But it's funny. It's growing too, and I'm glad that companies like yours, as it grows and more gamers subscribe and find it, I think hopefully it's just going to become a really solid resource for gamers.
Well, what I've noticed, I think we've reached a stage with the internet and all the apps and everything else associated with it. It's not always easy to find craft makers of stuff, of anything really,
or find them again
in any industry. So it's great to have, there's some really small companies that are in there, and I think that's great, and how are those companies going to get found by people at all?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a company with somewhat of a budget, and it's still difficult for me because, I have to battle with all these other big companies, for the same space as everyone else. So
sure.
I think it's great. There's a lot of cool people doing cool stuff out there, and you give them, a little bit of exposure, which I think is great.
Well, happy to do it. Hey, can you tell me, now obviously 1985 Games, I very much doubt you guys started in 1985. So for the readers or viewers who are not familiar with you, can you give us a little background on 1985 Games?
Sure. We started the company 2 years ago. Jeremiah, my business partner, is our creative director, and he just had an idea of doing an art book. And originally we thought about doing a coloring book or just doing it in black and white. And he originally had the idea of like, why aren't there just buildings and trees? And there are all these simple things that you do in D&D, and like, oh, look, it's a green circle. Great. Yeah, that's a tree, by the way, And when you draw that tree, you're like, well, what kind of tree is it?
Right.
And then as a DM, you
down the rabbit
know
hole.
that people want to know what kind of tree that is. And you're like, oh, well, wouldn't it be great to just be like, boop, there you go. It's a pine tree. It's right there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the idea started. And we actually knew an artist who was a comic book artist. And it just we kind of got the band together, and that's kind of how things got started.
Sorry about that. Live.
Oh, I've got my own. They're not here in my office.
So Lenny, the first product you kickstarted was just called Dungeon Craft Volume 1, and it was sort of, I won't call it generic, but
yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It's got assets for being, in a cemetery, or being in a dungeon, or being out in the woods, or being in the city. There's a little bit of everything. There's some buildings, there's dungeon pieces, there's trees, there's rocks, there's creatures. A little bit of everything that can work for just about any encounter, and a whole bunch of bulk creatures. You can never have too many orcs or goblins or something like that. So,
and that Kickstarter was successful.
Yes,
and yeah. It allowed you to do, I guess you called it part 2 or round 2 or.
So yeah, the way we're doing our line of books is Dungeon Craft is a generic, has a little bit of everything for anyone. After that, we started doing more themed books. Our second book was Hell and High Water, which we paired to go with the Salt Marshes and Avernus.
Avernus, yep.
So there's Hell assets, and then there's also water assets. And then the 2 books we did after that are Cursed Lands, which is meant to go with Curse of Strahd, or Castles and Keeps, which, by the way, we've only had those books in our hands for like 3 months. And I just realized, you can make an epic castle in Castles and Keeps. So I need to get a double wide table and make a 3 or 4 foot castle with those pieces, because there are enough pieces to do that.
For viewers out there who don't know, this container contains a stack of laminated sheets that you cut out, and like that. And this thing's almost an inch thick. So they advertise
it's 48 pages.
48 pages, and you advertise it as over 1,000 pieces of terrain per box. So 2 boxes here. And just as an example, this is Lenny. I got to give you credit. So here's a sample piece. It's a roof. I put that down. My players, I say that's a building, and I could do others. I could do like 3 or 4, and the sets come with multiple buildings. So you can see the roof, and when the players enter, you just flip it over, and you have the contents of the building. Mm-hmm. I cannot tell you how useful that will be, because here's my thing. As a DM, whenever I run a game with my players, I do a lot of crafting. I make my own terrain, but inevitably when I bring terrain, I always bring it in a big bag to the game. When my players see me bend over and reach for it, or if I just try to subtly, pick it up, they all sit a little taller, because they know, they're like, oh, something's coming. Combat's coming.
Yep.
So it removes part of the surprise. You can't, and you have to set it up, and it takes time sometimes to set up an elaborate, piece of terrain. And I'm not saying I'll never do that again, but I don't want my players. I've trained my players, and I want to untrain them that they want to use miniatures. Okay, I'm fine with miniatures, but don't expect quality, high handcrafted terrain for every little setting that you're going to go through. That takes too much time. Right. But with these kind of things, and believe it or not, I'm actually writing an adventure right now, and I've been going through these, and I realize I need to order the first one. These I can put in envelopes, and I can label them scene 1, scene 2, whatever. And as I follow my notes, when it's time, I can pull these out, put them down. And what's really cool about them is it's going to untrain my players. Just because I have a cemetery laid out here, just doesn't mean that everything's got a hidden secret. It's just letting you see the scene.
It could just be a cemetery.
Right, exactly. But if I pull out a crafted cemetery with real tombstones, they all get all like, ooh, what's coming? So my goal, and I have to tell you, Lenny, because of the name of your company, 1985 Games, I'm getting ready to start running Old School Essentials.
Nice.
I love this product. And I will tell you right now, your products match up to exactly what I'm hoping my players are going to get out of a game, which is, mystery, and then investigation, some combat, things like that. But I don't have to spend hours pondering which scene am I going to try to make something more 3-dimensional. With this, I just start laying down the steps, the dungeon halls, the castle, interiors, whatever. And here's another thing, and I want you to talk about this, but I recently did a video on randomness, and how randomness in this game, it's that old school feel. The DM often is rolling dice and does not know what's around the corner. With this kind of product, I don't have to worry about that. At the end of the hall is a left turn. Well, guess what? Slap, there's a left turn.
Right.
It's great. So let me ask you, these two I kickstarted, and you have a new Kickstarter.
Yes, we do.
And I'm trying to remember, it's jungle themed, right?
2 new boxes.
That's it. Fallen Kingdom and Jungles of Dread. That's what I had. Okay.
They are both jungle themed. This Jungles of Dread is more jungle assets, and then Fallen Kingdom is more tombs related assets.
Okay.
But they're all really, designed to go with Tomb of Annihilation or any sort of jungle theme setting. There's dinosaurs in there, so why wouldn't you want to just have dinosaurs in any campaign? So
yeah. If it's possible, put a dinosaur in your campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
And, even better, put a zombie dinosaur in your campaign.
Yeah. Who wouldn't want to go and be in that encounter? The art on the covers on the art looks so good. We're actually getting some signed by our artists. So
let's go back to that. You guys don't skimp on your artwork. The pieces are outstanding, but these covers, this castle one alone,
yeah.
I'd love to have a poster of that in my workshop.
We're working on something like that. We have to do something with all the art. Well, that's the great thing. You know, Travis Kotzebue is our artist, and he's a comic book artist. So, you know, we just basically give him some guidelines, and he just starts drawing stuff, and he's so amazing.
I see the influence, or I see that sort of a hint of that style here. So.
You know, the further along we go down this, the more he's having fun and the more he's getting to enjoy what he's doing too. It takes, you know, it took him a while to kind of get into the groove of, you know, how to draw the art. When we first got started, he was trying to draw them all like comic book art, which is way too detailed. And we're like, we need to go a little faster than that.
Can I show you one of my favorite ones? And
absolutely.
It's, you know, why is it my favorite? I could probably explain it, but it's a two-sided one. On one side is just a dining table.
Oh, yes.
With the food. And on the flip side is a map and some weapons. Looks like maybe somebody's planning an attack. Mm-hmm. It's not what you would call super detailed. You know, you can't see any writing on the map. The food, it's hard to discern. You can see the chicken. I see the chicken, but this is the kind of thing that appeals to me. And I can tell you, I checked your Kickstarter this morning, your new one, and it's over $100,000.
Yep.
It's apparent that a lot of referees, GMs, DMs, take your pick, what you want to call yourself. It's apparent that people are in the gaming RPG world are finding this kind of thing very useful.
Well, we didn't do any trade shows for quite a while, but we're going to be at Gen Con in a few months. And one of the things when I'm talking to prospective DMs is, yeah, it's great you have this whole thing set up. Well, who says they're going to stay there? Especially if you're in a town or something, you're like, oh, you know, there's a big encounter at the square or whatever, but you know they're going to wander off. And so then you're like, oh, well, what's in the rest of the city? You know, did I plan out every building in the city? And with ours, you can lay out all of these buildings. And if somebody's like, well, I want to break into this building, or I want to, you know, like, yeah, there it is right there. And not only that, the roofs have texture to them. So somebody could hide behind it. And it's not, you know, I mean, when I draw a building, it's a flat roofed building, you know,
right.
It just adds a lot more texture and a lot more depth. And as a DM, it gives you some flexibility so you don't have to think of every single thing. And yeah, that table is a great example. I might be able to explain to you that it's a dinner, a beautiful dinner table and all that, but being able to see it, I can't draw that.
Yeah, to drop that on the table and then let the players move their miniatures in position to it. Mm-hmm. You know, I love theater of the mind. I don't do a lot of theater of the mind, but theater of the mind, you know, first off, you're putting on your players, envision the table. And now you not only have to force them to envision where they are on that table, but you have to, as the referee, you have to think about it. But something this simple allows them to put themselves around the table. Oh, somebody put him at the head of the table. He's just offended the Duke who walks in.
Right.
You know, those are the kind of prompts that a DM or GM who is good at improvisation, you can do stuff like that.
Right.
You know, I put this down. Oh, that chicken's poisonous. You know that there's going to be a dwarf player who goes, I grab that chicken and I take a big old bite. Guess what?
Right.
Well,
sure.
You know, viewers, I want you to see, you know, the smallest pieces are 1 inch by 1 inch. Here's a 3 inch by 3 inch. It's sort of it's a pedestal. And if you flip it over, you get the ruined version on the back.
Right.
And here's a small single story. You flip it over and it's a 1-bed living quarters, but they go all the way up to, look at this one. This one is almost a full sheet. Now, these are all, you cut them out and there's dotted lines, which will show you to, you know, some of them you were like, do I cut there? And if you look for the dotted line, you'll know. This one has a nice roof. And when you flip over, you find out it's, I guess you could call that a temple. Yeah, it's a temple of some sort. I mean, that alone is a whole scene right there on one sheet. And it allows the players to move around and interact. Here's this one was a general store. There's weapons and food and
you don't have to explain everything that's in there, right? As a DM, you're never going to explain everything that's on that picture.
You want to go in there, guys? Go right ahead.
Exactly.
I put this down. Feel free to run in there. It's on fire.
Things do tend to catch on fire.
Yeah. There was, got to tell you, the couch / mimic couch. It's nice.
We try to
Very
throw in
nicely
some
done.
mimics where we can.
Lots of mimics.
It is our company logo. So
the mimic couch.
no, our logo is a tape cassette mimic. That's our company logo.
I know it's the tape cassette. I never noticed it was a mimic.
Yeah, we have the mimic is our new official. I think on that box it was just the cassette, but
it's just the cassette.
Okay. Yeah. But now it's a cassette mimic is our.
How did I miss that? Logo. And here's just this one's another great one. This is the blacksmith shop.
Yep.
Let me tell you, a year or more ago, I sat down and tried to come up with like a 3-dimensional blacksmith shop that I would craft and do. And I had a few tests and I never could quite get it happy with it. But guess what? I'm quite happy with that.
Right.
I mean, everything's in its place. It's recognizable for what it is. You
can see the fire and the heat. Yeah. You know, that it's just so much more. There's so much. And the other thing too is the other thing I tell people at conventions is, and what happens if you don't finish your encounter and you have to come back to it? Well, now I'm coming back to my green circles and all that. With our stuff, you just take a picture with your phone and put all the pieces right back. You don't have to, as the DM, you don't have to describe, okay, what was in the blacksmith's build. You don't have to describe all that stuff again. Just
and
put it back down and there it is.
They're also dry erase. You can totally.
Yes, wet erase, dry erase. They're heavy laminated. You do have to cut them out, which every year, every time we do a Kickstarter or every time we sell somebody says, I wish there were, you could punch them out. But there's 2 problems with that. First of all, the punch outs leave little dots and they have a rough edge. So pieces won't go together well. It would also be about 3 times as expensive to have them be punch out. So you do have to do a little work, but it does make it a lot more affordable.
Yeah. And you just mentioned one of the key aspects of this kind of thing. I mean, just for example, the castles and keeps, there is everything in here to do multiple levels of not just intact castles, but like collapsed ones too.
Right. Yeah. Siege engines, all kinds of cool stuff.
To do this in 3-dimension or even like punch out terrain, the cost would just be, most referees would just say not happening, but very reasonably priced for what you get.
Yeah. We're excited. We're excited to get people actually out there using our pieces because because of the pandemic, there haven't been that many people actually in person using our products. So I'm excited to see what people are going to do with our books and make really cool stuff out of it. I'm thrilled about that.
Well, with all the new players out there, that's not forced, but it's also means we have a lot of new GMs that are coming, and they're inexperienced. Or they're getting experience, but they want to take their game to another level. And stuff like this is perfect for a new GM or an inexperienced GM who, you've got your hands full. You're trying to keep 6 balls in the air, and players are asking, well, tell me about that statue. Here, bam, there it is. There's everything in its place and with relative to where everything is, and it takes one bit of load off the GM. It's really nice,
especially if your players are younger. We have a lot of families come to our table, and they want to play with their kids, and their kids are like 12.
Yeah. Oh, it's eye-catching for kids.
I know you could explain that to a kid, but it's going to be a lot easier to look at it.
I'm going to climb up on that statue. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, wow. and then he knows exactly. Yeah, you could just see it.
Yeah. Hey, I was going to ask you. First off, viewers, this is not a paid product. They're me for this. I have enjoyed this product so much. I reached out to Lenny and said, "Let me pick your brain and talk to you." So. I can highly encourage this product. As I said, I backed the Kickstarter. I didn't find, I missed the first one, but I found this one.
All right.
And, but before we, I want to stay on this topic, but I do want to ask one more question about another product. You sell that thing called, Deck of Stories.
Yes.
Deck of Stories. And you have multiple decks, but then you have what's called upgrades or expansions or something like that.
So yeah, here.
Yeah, show. Yeah.
So the base product is Deck of Stories 1 and 2. And these are ways to kind of keep your story going along, or you can actually do your own adventures from this. They're decks of story prompts is essentially what they are. We have the Genesis box, which is the Deck of Stories 1, NPC cards, and sensory cards. So it's a little bit of everything.
Right.
And then we also have booster packs, which I don't have any in front of me.
That's okay. That's what I was looking for.
We have, ocean themed, hell themed, Gears themed, Gothic themed, and jungle themed. So we have.
Now, I will say you did send me a copy of the Genesis box.
Yes.
And I loved it. Definitely interested more in the randomness of I don't want players. I don't like to put a hallway down that can go left or right. And I don't like to feel like I'm pushing the players to go left. And as a GM, you know that if they go left, you can just flip the map.
Right.
If you really wanted them to go right, guess what?
Right.
On your map, they're going right. I really like the idea of allowing players to control the story within limits. And that deck, I will tell you, that deck has, guys, it has full-size cards, large cards of NPCs. So when you describe an NPC, you can show the players what that NPC looks like. And on the back of the card, it has basic stuff like their personality and their name and things like that. Do you have one handily available?
I can get the box open.
I hate to ask you to open another one. I should have had my decks packed. I just moved, Lenny, and my deck is packed away somewhere. I looked for it and could not find it.
Let me get one open here.
Now, while he's looking, I'll tell you, viewers, the other way the deck works is it breaks your random story into 3 parts. And you draw 3 cards from the deck, and you can sort of organize them the way you like, but it sort of sets in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And yeah, there we go. NPCs, gotta love it.
So it's got the card, and then it has personality traits. We didn't do stats,
right?
Because we wanted NPCs that can be used in any sort of scenario. And once you put stats on them,
yeah,
you're kind of stuck to those. So we have human, all kinds of different NPC cards.
Yeah, there were dwarves and drow, and
everything.
There were all kinds in there. And so the booster packs, do they give you? They're more of the story cards.
The booster packs are just story prompts, and then we do have individual booster packs of just the NPCs.
Oh, okay.
If you just want to buy a pack of NPCs, you can just buy a pack of NPCs also.
As a GM, you dread that whole when the players say they want to head into town. It's like you better have a list of names somewhere because your players are going, what's this? Who is that? And who is this? And as a GM, you're keeping track of so much. And now I've got the name and I've got who they are. And
you just hold this card.
Yes.
And again, you can show them this is what they look like.
Show them the card and they can get a visual of who they're dealing with.
Right.
And some of the art on those cards, some of those characters are NPCs you don't want to walk up to.
Right.
I mean, show that to a player, they're gonna be like, "Whoa, we're first level. No.
Yeah. I'm not sure about this.
So let me ask you, because we've got a few more minutes here. Where is 1985 Games going? What do you guys see for the future of your company?
We're just coming out of the pandemic. We're so excited to go to trade shows again. We're so looking forward to connecting with our fans and people that support us, people like you. And it's been a weird year. We did really well in 2019 and we did 3 trade shows and then nothing.
Damn.
And we couldn't get into stores. There's so much we couldn't do to get out to the world. And so for the last year and a half, we've almost been like an internet company. And I'm just looking forward to getting out and meeting people. I just talked to one of the game stores here we're working with in Portland. And, we're going to start doing some giveaways and contests. And I donate to charitable events. There's 3 schools in Iowa where they're using Dungeons and Dragons to help special needs kids learn. And so, I'm looking forward to getting out into our community and getting back to normal, but getting to see everyone like you that enjoy our products.
I am looking forward to running some games at some conventions that are coming up too.
Yes. Yeah. No kidding.
As a GM, I have missed having a table of players, and I feed off of it. I people ask me, don't you like to play? And I'm like, yeah, sometimes, but I'm mostly I like the GM position, and I'm fine with it. And stuff like this dungeon craft. I mean, I scour for these things that make my life easier at the table. So so I will be, I will be backing the current two just for more terrain, and I've got to back
and more NPCs and more decks.
Yeah.
And we have miniatures in this Kickstarter too.
You have new miniatures?
Yeah, including a giant crab, which we're calling a jungle.
Gotta have a giant crab. You're gonna have. You
have to go look at the giant crab. The giant crab is, it's a jungle giant crab, and I'm so excited to get that modeled. It's already been modeled. We haven't printed it yet, but it's going to be very exciting.
So wrap up. You guys are going to be at Gen Con.
Yep, we'll be at Gen Con. We're going to be at PAX West, Rose City Comic Con, Emerald City Comic Con, and hopefully PAX Unplugged. So that's our schedule so far this year.
Well, if viewers, if any of you are attending those cons, definitely swing by their booth. You're going to want to see this stuff. If you're on the fence and you're not willing to trust me to tell you about this, go to one of the cons and handle it and look at it up close. I'll tell you, Lenny, I've purchased similar things to this off of like Drive-Thru RPG, where I have to print it myself, laminate it. Some of it was in black and white. Your material is definitely higher standard than anything I've ever put together from a downloaded PDF. But cost-wise, it was much more. If I had to print this much stuff, 48 pages, and laminate, like I do, it would cost a lot of money at the print shop. Now, I have a laminator, but you still have to print it in color. If you have a color inkjet or a color laser, this is costing a lot of ink. So
and that's cardstock. So cardstock and all that ink and laminating, plus your time to laminate it too.
Right. So it's really interesting to see how you guys have found the solution for using Kickstarter to bulk manufacture this, because I don't think this could be done in a smaller volume. Kickstarter really is the solution for this kind of product. Because and the other thing is all the stretch goals and stuff. I mean, I think you've got a solid product, and I'm really can't wait to see maybe what you've got planned for the future. If you want to drop any hints, you feel free. But if not, my viewers will just have to check you out.
Everything's under wraps at the moment, so we'll just have to wait and see.
All right. Well, Lenny Goddard from 1985 Games, I do appreciate your time. I know you guys are out in Portland, right?
Yep, we're in Portland, Oregon.
Where are you?
Where are you at?
What's that?
Where are you?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Opposite side of the country. We have a convention coming up in August here in Atlanta called Southern Fried Gaming Expo. It did not happen last year. It was virtual. But this year we're having it, and I've already got a couple of the. I'm going to be running some old school essentials games while I'm there, and I will be using this stuff. As I said, I've already sort of pulled some out and flagged them as, this is going to be perfect for this scene. The downside is I got to get that basic one, the original one, because it's got the generic more
buildings,
random stuff. Yeah. But do appreciate your time. Tell all your team there. I think there's 4 of you, right?
5 now.
5. Hey, you're growing. Excellent. Tell your team greetings from Atlanta. Tell them that the stuff you guys are putting out has Tabletop Engineer seal of approval.
I certainly appreciate that, and thank you for your time. Thanks for the interview. I really appreciate it.
All right, Lenny. Take care.
Thank you.
Each month, Bexham's Bizarre RPG and Wargaming magazine provides gamers with articles, props to print and cut out for players, mini adventures, new monsters, and much more. Look in the description below for details on how to get a few free issues so you can see what you're missing.